Today's video is brought to you by Simply Safe. Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto. Today we're going to experiment a little bit. I want to make a hexagon, a six-sided box that also has a six-sided box within a box, and then it's all held together with epoxy. It's an experiment. It's this thing that I come up with in my head. I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So it'll probably be, I don't know, 10 inches by 10 inches, but it'll go like this. That'll be the outside wall, and I'm thinking 1/4 inch walnut, but then within the inside is another little box, right? And so we have all these pieces and they're glued up, and so there's no top, there's no bottom. It's just these two hexagons, and one's going to float inside the middle. And then if we pour epoxy all in here and in here, it will create the floor and create the base of this box. And then if that experiment works, then I want to make a lid, either a lid for the center section and leave the outside exposed, or a lid for the outside section and leave the inside exposed. I drew this up in Fusion 360, at least just this part, to let me know what the angles are. Of course, you probably already know that the angles are 120 degrees. I did not know that. I needed to draw this up. I needed the visual. I need to see things. I'm not much of a numbers math guy. So the very first thing I need to do is pull out some walnuts out of the closet. We're gonna resaw it, we're gonna plane it down, and then we're gonna take everything to the table saw and start chopping. So we have all of our pieces cut. I've mixed up some Total Boat epoxy, put a little purple in there. And I have a silicone mat here that the epoxy does not adhere to. So the plan is to place this in here. I created a little reservoir of hot glue, so anything that kind of runs underneath hopefully stays in here. I didn't want to hot glue the piece to the mat because this particular hot glue is really, really hard to remove from the walnut from previous experience. So I also cut these little spacers in here to help me space this out. This is it. This is everything right here. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a disaster. So now, I'm just gonna throw this on there. Hopefully it creates a good seal on the mat and doesn't leak out and cause a disaster. There is a little bit of leak out over here on the front here. I think we're gonna be good. All right, so this has had plenty of time to dry, so let's take the weight off of here and see if we can remove this from the mat. That worked out really, really good. So you can see that some of the epoxy went out from underneath and adhered itself to the hot glue, but the hot glue kept it from pouring out, which is all good. Probably just sand that away. Holy cow, that came out so good. I am so happy with how that turned out. So I am going to make a lid for this center section. Before I do that, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Simply Safe. And I also want to tell you how Simply Safe saved my butt. Simply Safe is an easy to use, customizable home security system that is free from contracts and hidden costs. Having just upgraded system, Simply Safe devices are now half the size as before and reach nearly double the range with 5 times faster speeds. Simply Safe is an incredible, effective, reliable home security that will make sure your home is safe. If you've been worried about safety and you've been putting off dealing with it, you don't need to wait another minute. Simply Safe makes it really easy to secure your home. I've done it, takes less than an hour. From there, your home is professionally monitored 24/7, and if anything happens, Simply Safe makes sure the police is called. They've got sensors to cover every room, window, and door. Plus, they have all kinds of extras like temperature sensors, water sensors, and HD cameras. It's all really easy to use. You get round-the-clock protection for like 50 cents a day with no contracts. They've even won US News and World Report's Best Overall Home Security System for 2020. My personal story with Simply Safe. So back when my father had to stay in the hospital, I installed Simply Safe in his home. And what do you know, at like 2 in the morning, I get a phone call from Simply Safe saying the back door had been opened and the local sheriff had been called. So visit simplysafe.com/makesomething to learn more. Again, simplysafe.com/makesomething. So thank you to Simply Safe for sponsoring today's video. Now let's make a lid for this guy. And to get this exact measurement, I'm just going to take a piece of paper and I'm just going to kind of press on there to get the indentation and draw all the lines, the inside and outside. So I'm going to cut this part out and then use that as a template on a piece of walnut. So now that that fits in there with a nice fit, we can cut the top half of this lid, basically using the top half of this template, but maybe just go out a little bit. So when I cut this out, I'll just go a hair bigger. I also took the top piece over to the router table and routed a chamfer along the edge. I went with a chamfer instead of a roundover because the chamfer is going to highlight all of the angles that we have, and I think a roundover would look kind of weird. So now we can take our bottom piece and just glue it right to the top piece. Once those are glued together, this could be the lid. You could pop a little pole on there and that could be your lid that would fit nicely in here. I'm gonna get a little more fancy and I'm gonna cut one more piece over on the step craft that's going to be glued on top of this just to add another element of design to it. Obviously, you don't have to do this part. You could skip it if you don't feel like getting your CNC out. Obviously. Now that I have all 3 pieces, I'm just gonna glue them together. And that's gonna be our lid. This is looking pretty hot. So I put it on a couple coats of finish and it came out really, really good. I'm super happy with this. One of the things that I showed my wife this before I made the lid, and she thought it was a wall hanging for like a little shelf, which awesome idea. You put a little air plant right there. I think this would look super cool. Brings through the color of the wall if you use the clear acrylic. So that is an idea. The finish that I used was the Maker brand finish, then with a couple coats of spray can shellac to give it a little bit of shine. I normally do not like any kind of gloss on my wood projects, but for this one, I wanted the gloss to kind of show off the geometric patterns on the top here. The design on the top here I made up in Fusion 360. I have a video over on Patreon for my Patreon members to show how I did that. If you are looking for some walnut or any hardwoods, check out my friends at kencraftcompany.com. They're a local Toledo company, but they do sell online, so you might want to check them out. I'll have links to all the materials and supplies that I use down below in the video description. That is going to wrap it up. I think this shows a lot of possibilities of what you could do with epoxy. And man, imagine if all you had was a jigsaw and you wanted to make some really cool, fun, decorative, designy type boxes. You could do this. Maybe those angles would be a little bit difficult, but you could do a square box with a jigsaw and an epoxy resin bottom. So a lot of possibilities there. That is gonna wrap it up. We will see you again next week with a brand new project. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something.